Hello, welcome to my channel for Evolved Humans. I am Ms. Day. This is a collective message. At first I was going to do a video to answer 2 questions that have been asked in the comments and in emails because I feel like there's certain questions that have repeated, and when I was writing down my notes to make sure I stayed organized, it just kind of turned into a collective message because it felt like a reading as I was going. So I just thought I would share it, and the reason I'm sharing it here is because I was going to put it in my members only as a video about how to reach up literally from your vehicle into the highest frequency to interact with it. And I realized that a lot of the people that asked these questions in particular, not all of them are in my members area. So I feel like this is something that should not be kept selectively behind closed doors. So I'm just going to share the messages and then I'll get into a regular reading in the next video. And okay, so just to begin with, the very first question, like I said, I was going to do that video in my members only space about how to reach up. So like this is when, like what moments I'm referring to are when you are in need of information you do not have. So like one really good example is when maybe you have a deficiency in something in your mind, in your physical state, and you know that you're like trying to zone in on focusing on like what your body is in need of to be properly nourished so that it can function better. Like a lot of people do that. We fluctuate like with our own self-care very commonly, where a lot of people will be like, well, I'm really paying attention. I'm really going to hone in on the portioning and the times of day that I'm eating. And I'm going to make sure to put in physical activity that aids in what I'm taking in. And it's like in those times that you're really willing to commit to improving and evolving that interaction between your consciousness and your physical state, you can get weird little nudges, whether in conversations with other people that like these things just happen to come up and you're like, wow, that's the tip I was looking for and had no idea that's what I needed to know. And then it can also come up when you're just like by yourself and going throughout your daily routine and wondering in your own mind, kind of in a question format where you're like, what is it that I could be lacking? Because at some point in your life, you have learned about certain deficiencies and maybe what red flags are that lead you to which deficiencies are making those alarms sound. So like the red flags, I mean. So like when it comes to literally getting information that you don't have, it can be in a moment like that where you're just trying to evolve yourself as a being, as a medium for the information that is available to us all. But then there are moments of desperation when you are in need of and searching for, desperately sometimes, information that you don't have. Like, this is actually a way of just knowing. This is just really evident of how intelligent the human is, because just imagine, all of those documentaries where people are kidnapped or they survived and other people around them did not. And it just happened to come down to one momentary decision where they acted on something that could have been nuts and it could have gone 50-50, positive or negative results. And they just went for it and it worked. And it's like, you can compare that to someone who survived a car crash. And if the car had crashed, if they had lost control just 500 feet later than they did, then they could have crashed into a concrete wall because they were going to go into a tunnel. So, and you can think, oh, well, then that was saved, like that person was saved. But the thing is, it's always accessible for you to reach up. When things happen, it's not necessarily because someone has a special opening. That's what I'm trying to say. A special channel is not what like gives you those fortunate moments. The way that you can affect the outcome in certain situations, if it can be affected, that can be dependent on your ability to open up your own channel to information. So like just an example of that would be like when my daughter several years ago, when she was tiny, otherwise it it wouldn't be as terrifying now because like our stairs are actually not that big, but she fell down the stairs. And what at first appeared as though it had knocked the wind out of her, it took a really long time for her to come back, and she started to lose color, and I was starting to blow air into her mouth because I was kind of freaking out. And then we ended up calling 911 because it was way too long for comfort. And this is just an example of how I reached up. That was a moment of desperation. That was the reason for me to reach up. But the action that I took in my mind was the exact same action that you take when you're trying to pay attention to eating cleaner foods, making sure that you're getting the proper nourishment because you get migraines when you have a vitamin D deficiency or something like that. Because really interacting with your vehicle and improving its functioning, that's the foundation of having a really great interaction with the highest frequencies. Because when you're interacting all of the time, you're always interacting with light and you're always interacting with nature. It's natural. So that actually brings me to the first point, which was a fun kind of message to kind of work out. So, and this is why it needs to be shared collectively and not just in my members only, because this is not specific to different people. This is not specific. Nature is not selective with who's able to access it. By default, you get to. So, the first point is you can interact with the highest frequencies. You can interact with light energy, nature as a whole, collective, consciously. You can interact with consciousness more naturally than you can interact with your phone. And just on that, it's really important that what I really want to hit on is that you are the medium for the information. No matter what circumstance is happening around you, no matter what situation you're experiencing emotionally, you have the power within your brain to access an answer that you're in need of. And, sorry, excuse me. So, hang on. Okay. So, you, as the medium for the information as it comes in and moves throughout you and goes out, the ability to reach up can so easily happen in question form in your mind, where you grab hold of your literal consciousness and you decide that you are going to ask a question, and that you, as a biological vehicle that breathes in order to survive and in order to process properly, you have to decide before you ask that you're going to emotionally accept whatever answer is true. And that's where your interaction with yourself is so significantly important as a base foundation for what you're able to interact with out here. Because let's say you ignore your emotions as a habit, then your interaction in here, this is a literal reality that is existent in the natural world. So if you're wanting to interact with and open up your channel to all forms of information, or to all of the information that is available to you to be experienced by your human, then it's really, really important to get in touch with how your human experiences information on all frequencies, not just the higher frequencies. So, when I say an emotional acceptance, that is when your consciousness being housed in a human vehicle kind of makes it easier as a visualization if you can just picture that you are consciousness in here, you're consciously aware because you're existing within a biological entity that is not stationary, like a tree, and you process all information that you encounter and that you're able to accept internally. And so when you think about literally how to reach up to the highest frequencies, to really get the high frequency messages that you're like, I just need some seriously profound truth that's going to reshift my perspective into the right direction. That is when one of the messages that I had gotten from the higher frequencies, and I've mentioned it in readings in here before. If you haven't heard it, I'm going to say it again, which was that when the opposite of using your discernment between what is true and what is false, the opposite of using your discernment is being impressionable. And so what I mean by that is literal. So just in general, because you are a biological system, your brain and spinal cord, that is the thing. That's the thing, the system that produces light, energy. That's the thing that does it. So just imagine what you do when you look down at your phone. Just imagine what we all do. We tilt our head down and we kind of sever the connection between our spinal cord and our brain. And it's like we direct our focus downward into this device, which we fully intend to give us what we expect and desire from it. The reason I'm saying that ties in. So just consider what I had said before, that the opposite of using discernment is being impressionable. So the reason that I knew and delivered that message in a reading at some point along the way in YouTube here, in the main channel, the reason I knew that was a high frequency message that I was receiving was because it aligns with a certain truth, with multiple truths that we've already had established and proven in our natural world that we exist in. So, hold that thought. The reason I knew that when I heard, I'm just not cool enough to come up with that line. I'm just not. I wish I were, but that was not, I needed that line that week. In my own life, even for my own perspective on my kid in junior high. It was a significant line for me. Huge lesson, huge help. I still use it now. The reason I knew it was high frequency and it was not some low frequency screwing with me to alter my direction into a lower motive or a lower energy draw was because it aligned with proven truth that I don't doubt. I trust certain truths of the natural world we live in, and that is my foundation for my discernment as a human, as I experience them. Because I can't depend on me just deciding that's true, that's false. I can't do that because I'm not responsible for the truths that I trust. Such as, so hold that thought. Think about looking down at your phone, your biological system which produces light, which connects us to consciousness. Okay. I don't know if you've ever heard anyone say this or any preachers say this, but it's a strange thing. I keep having these pastors pop up in my feed, and the oddity of it is that they keep saying things, and to me, it sounds like one of us readers out here. It's so similar that their wording is different, but the messages are aligned with the same truths that I trust as my foundation in my own discernment. So this has been an interesting thing because where they would say, the Lord says, that's where I say our guides, the high frequency, because I consider what is true and in service of our species evolving. I think that is a collective high frequency that we all align with no matter what we call it. So the truth that the opposite of using discernment is being impressionable, think about your phone and how you kind of angle down. Oftentimes I've heard preachers say, I love this line that I've heard from them because I feel like it's so aligned with the truth of energy as we experience it at the low frequencies. They say that the enemy wants to get in the way of like your closest relationships. They want to cause havoc where you have established security and stability for yourself. So like for me, when the low frequency was running my vehicle, I was experiencing horrible bulimia. I was producing a low frequency and accepting a low frequency and deciding to do so. So it took aligning with the reality of what I was experiencing and actively existing as in the natural world to sort of make me recognize I can go up from here. I can evolve my own internal situation with proven science because I don't doubt that. And here's why it's so important to establish truths when you want to reach up and really open your channel. Because the quickest way to block and sever that information as it comes in is with doubt. Like I said, oftentimes these people who are in touch with the same types of frequencies that I'm in touch with, no matter what they call them, they all notice the same thing, which is that lower frequency stuff kind of wreaks havoc on the peace. Internally, externally, relationships, circumstantially, all of it. So, all right. The truth that discernment versus being impressionable is the thing that I think Einstein said, which is that, did you know, this is crazy cool. This is crazy cool. I've learned this because of this stuff, not because it's just something I ever gathered accidentally, but that gravity, the rate at, I think Einstein said, the rate at which gravity accelerates is equal to the speed of light. So, this is where, when you're deciding to kind of allow yourself down, you're actively giving into something that you have the ability to intercept. It's naturally going to go downward because you are grounded to the earth due to this downward force. So to reach up, it's really helpful if you recognize that your vehicle kind of needs to become aware of what exactly you use in order to become aligned with those high frequencies. So like, that's where I'm saying, instead of using your device as the medium where you want information, you seek information, you trust the information, it's really important to recognize that you don't doubt what you get out of this device. So like, let me just give you an example. Because in order to emotionally accept something, you have to recognize what you've adapted to blocking. We are so quick, and the high frequency messages are quite rapid as you receive them. So you need to know this if you're trying to open up and receive and know and use your discernment as to, am I receiving or did I just make that up? Okay, so when you are, let's just say you want to go get flowers at the flower shop up the street, okay? You want flowers, it's 5 p.m., you don't know what time they close, maybe they close at 5, so you don't want to drive down the street. You want to check your phone, you're going to Google the store hours. Google, what time does flower shop up the street close? It says they close at 5 p.m. It's 5 p.m. now. Do you doubt that information, that answer that you received and fully anticipated having accessible at your fingertips? You don't doubt it. You just ask yourself this question. Do you put your phone down and go, I'm going to go test that theory, and drive down the street to see if they actually closed at 5 when you just saw it's Sunday, they close at 5, it's 5 o'clock on a Sunday? You trust it because it's information. It's not personally diluted information when you're Googling store hours. So when you reach up and you ask a question in your mind and you're the medium instead of a phone and a website server, whatever, search engine, when you're the search engine and you're trying to ask into the wide consciousness in the form of light is what I'm saying. If you reach up to do that, there's a fine line between using your doubt to reserve judgment and your doubt disguised as being certain this won't happen. So if you kind of by default close the door, and there are a couple of reasons I feel like some people who are going to see this video might close the door. Some of you, I think in childhood, things creeped you out so much you had to. I know that applies to somebody in here. I know it. I feel like I can even picture dark outside, even like some people living out in in open areas and not so much like in a city or community. And I feel like you closed the doors intentionally because it made you feel safer in your youth. So, on that, it's very important that in order to remove the doubt as you ask the question, to emotionally accept something when you're reaching up, it's going to take a momentary new action within your brain where you're like, I can receive a new answer if I just try with all I've got in this one moment. Because you've got this one moment in space and time as a natural living biological entity. Prove this wrong. Prove it wrong. Try it. And try it more than once before you decide that your door is closed. Because when you adapt to doubting information and expecting it not to flow easily for you, it's like your doubt it can become a decision that you no longer think about. It's the same as like if you use an instrument. Think about like, I'm going to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the violin. First time I've ever used the violin, I just learned what my finger placement is, and someone goes, play the whole song, do it. And it's like, well, I see the information. I know that's D, I know that's sharp, I know that's this and this and this, but my vehicle is slow and clunky at it. I'm trying to interpret how to smooth that information flow from my mind into my hands so that the sound is a vibration that isn't wretched. And so and not the intention. You want to get the sound you want. So you want the interaction to be something that you realize, if you are accustomed to not allowing for that interaction due to your own doubt, which I totally understand. I'm like literally a skeptic, believe it or not. I don't do readings and stuff, but I'm like extremely skeptical, because the reason I started doing it was because I had to be hardcore convinced that it was real by dead people themselves, because I was just really disappointed in people kind of exploiting emotions with it and not so much being productive. Because so what I'm saying is, when you're ready to reach up, asking a question to the high frequencies, it doesn't necessarily have to be directed to like God or angels or whatever words. The word isn't so much, the language isn't so much what we base it on. Because if we did, none of us would do this, because no one's defined it quite right. So it's really important for you to realize that you have this individual interaction with consciousness, because you're your own individual perception. And your perception, which you have formed along the way, it's unique in it, and it's as unique as a snowflake is unique, and a fingerprint. And the reason that's so significant is because it's like, so my daughter watched this special on Disney Plus, and I think it's called The Wings of Life. And it was like, it had butterflies in it. And there was this one scene where the butterflies are just scattered across the screen, and it's like filling this wide open space in nature somewhere. And my daughter was just standing there, like with her mouth hanging open. And I just kind of looked at her because I thought it was so cute that she was so excited. And she was like, she just looked at me and she was like, and not one of them runs into another one. She was just blown away that they could be so in sync with the way that they were moving, that they weren't like, you know? Because in reality, that's kind of like how humans are interacting energetically as a whole, like as a collective. And I feel like I'm saying this because that connection is your connection. Like, you know how they say that these animals have their instincts? We are natural beings of the earth. So like, it's natural that we grab information from consciousness that was from another time as well. Because we're here now. We're still producing information with the time and the space that we have. And it's like, and sometimes when that doesn't feel very uplifting or inspiring, when my daughter was sick in the last week, like she wanted to watch The Lord of the Rings, which I think it was hilarious. She was just like, I want to watch The Lord of the Rings. She was serious about it. And she's a very frilly little girl, so it was kind of hilarious that she had done that. Sorry about that. So in The Lord of the Rings, I had this crazy moment where I was sure it was going to come in to some sort of reading, and then when I was like getting ready to do this collective message thing, it was right there. So one of the things that he says in the very beginning of all of these movies is, which I think is so sweet, but also so brilliant. He says that when Frodo is like, I wish none of this had happened. And then Gandalf is like, so do all who live to see such times. And he says something like, all you can do is decide what to do with the time that is given to you. And I feel like it may not always be uplifting and inspiring and fun, but if you just recognize the fact that we have the ability to interact with consciousness, and we have all of these amazing scientific truths already established because of different entities that already existed, and that's what they did with their time here in our space. That's what they did in their time. Their interaction with time and space was to serve the collective. And here we are, interacting with all of these frequencies and interacting with other humans. And another thing, did you know that the same scientists that believe that gravity accelerates at the same rate as the speed of light, natural objects can bend light. And light can travel slower. So when you're experiencing like low frequencies, and this is bringing me to the second question. So I've kind of walked through like how to reach up, and it's literally you have to intersect upward in your own mind against the doubt with this willing acceptance of, I'm ready to receive from the highest frequency of consciousness. Like, I'm ready to be of use to my species in my time here. And it's like, if you can do that, then here they'll come. They're really fast. That's another thing I want to mention before moving on to the second question that became a part of this. Question asked in the comments. When you receive a message from the high frequency, it's rapid. It's so rapid that you think it's your own thought, and almost the way to tell that it's not is that you think as you're asking a question in your mind, if you've prepared the place that you're in, your home mechanism, if you have your head up and your spine moving and you're breathing deeply and you're willingly accepting of whatever truth you receive in response to the question that you are asking out into consciousness, if you do that, the highest frequency messages are so rapid, they can intercept your question before you're finished asking it. It's wild. So that's where that gravity truth, it's so important to just recognize that there's a natural pull down, and that the way to reach up, you're the tool that intercepts you. It's not your phone. It's not a tarot deck. It's not a Ouija board. It's not crystals. It's all here, and it's your biological system, because in producing light, you interact with light. You're interacting because you're receiving and interpreting, and you're bending it. So when I put like light bender and light worker, like I mean it as literal as possible. So, okay. So the second question that had been asked in the comments and in emails that I wanted to answer that I didn't want to put in the members only was, how do I know whether the low frequency I'm sensing is myself or something else? And I feel like that is the $1 million question. Like, that is the number one question that as a medium, we always have to have integrity about. Like, we have to ask ourselves that question on a regular basis in order to be certain that we are not becoming accustomed to personally diluting the truth. And so if I were to say that there were a literal way to reach upward, it would be that your willpower becomes stronger, and you can develop this strength of force behind your own willpower, your strength of will. The idea is for your strength of will to become a stronger force upward than your human's ability to remain at the same state of being, to resist the change, because gravity is going to pull you down no matter what. So it's like you have to have this sort of visualization of your consciousness is always able to produce a high frequency. You're always capable of that. As long as you're alive, you can do that. So this is where the second question, that whole, how do I know? And that is exactly why it's like I realized it was a reading that was coming out, because it started with the opposite of using discernment is being impressionable. Your ability to decide what you're going to accept, that you're not going to doubt something, that you're going to keep at it until you've given it a fair shot. That is even the ability to ask a question. It's got to be a decision. Because I can talk about this and say this in every single video for the next 3 years. And until you're in your own mind consciously saying I'm going to breathe in and I'm going to recognize that the high frequency is all around me all of the time, and that I'm allowed and I want to interact with it. It's mine. I am it. This is exactly what we're housing as a human experience, is consciousness. And what you have done with your own information in your own vehicle, it's so uniquely designed by you that to know if there's a low frequency due to maybe negative emotions that are lingering from, that you really need to heal from your past, or maybe the low frequency is because you're housing someone else's consciousness. Maybe you're a reader and you're going to, help someone remove their low frequency from their body, so you're experiencing their sensations. The discernment all depends on your awareness of how you interpret information. How do you react to the low frequency? How do you react to periods of growth? How hard is your wrath against yourself when you're really trying to up it and grow, and your internal conditions are trying to remain the same, but your willpower is I'm going forward with this one? Who wins that battle up to this point? Because the stronger you get at gaining authority and control over your brain and body and how it uses the information that it experiences, the more you can count on your discernment when you're experiencing other entities, or even if something comes up that you really just didn't realize you'd been holding on to for the past week, and you're just kind of I'm in a crappy mood, I have some low frequency and I think it's me. Sometimes you can have, you can sense low frequency when you're starting to get sick. I always, whenever my children are going to get sick, it's I don't know what it is, but it's within the first 24 hours before the symptoms really start to show, or sometimes before they even say anything about it, it's I'm starting to sense what it would feel like if there were a negative entity kind of attaching itself to someone. I'll just start to kind of feel my radar go, my alarm sounding, where it's something negative is in this environment here. Because that's what it is that gives you that ability to accept or block, is you have to be aware of it first. So if you're willing to accept that, you might have to practice accepting an experience that you haven't allowed for in many, many, many years. Sometimes doing it multiple times is going to open the door, and then it's open for good. So don't give up. If it's something that you want, ask for it. Because when you ask for information, let's just say you're asking for a stronger connection with the high frequency, or with the guides, your guides or past loved ones. Let's just say you're trying to strengthen that connection and you're asking for it, and then you're well, I've asked for it every single day for the past, 11 days, and I'm not hearing any special lines in my head. I'm not feeling any special messages. And it's I feel the most important thing is to continue asking. Because if you continue asking, your human is beginning to align in a different way with what it wants to experience. Sometimes, some of us are harder nuts to crack than others. I'm an extremely slow learner sometimes when it comes to my own emotional sort of barriers that I have to get through. Sometimes I have to run into that wall, 9 times and get bad results for myself before I realize, oh, I can actually stop causing this problem for myself and just do this instead. Replace that here, because I don't identify with the cause that's getting this effect. anymore. I don't have to identify with that. I can release it from my mechanism going forward. So this is another thing that I wanted to mention. When I'm experiencing like this weird thing where these pastors and these preachers are like coming up in my feed, I love them. I listen to preachers sometimes when I'm just like really low and I need to hear someone who has faith, because faith just feels good sometimes. So one of the things that just one of them said, I don't remember the name. I'm sorry. Okay. But anyway, one of the cool things that they said that aligned with this message that I have gotten, because again, I'm not cool enough to just be like, oh, this is truth. I had to be given this because it was needed at some point along my own journey. In my own journey, that was sometimes we create obstacles by trying to avoid them. So something I heard a really smart person say just earlier today, and I was like, whoa, that's weirdly, he just did this sort of sermon, and it was so aligned with so many different readings I had heard that I thought that's weird, because, well, it's not weird, because consciousness is energy and we're all connected. The language doesn't necessarily make us more connected. I mean, there are certain cultures that have language altered so that they don't have certain knowledge. And yet, if they wanted to connect to the high frequency, they still have the brain and spinal cord to do so. It's just that sometimes we develop in a way that we need to redevelop ourselves, and that takes a long haul. It takes a long time of practice. So anyway, one of the things that they said in correlation to that, sometimes we create obstacles when we're trying to avoid them. It's like they said, messy people, if you're not messy, like if they can't find a mess around you, they're going to make a mess because they're messy people. And I mean, that was just another way of saying the obstacles thing. And I just thought, isn't that crazy that we all call the high frequency so many different things, and yet all the good messages seem to align with scientific truths? And to me, I just think that's super comforting. I feel like that's just a really sweet thing. And so anyway, so those are the two questions that I wanted to kind of answer in a weird way. So really, I guess it's kind of a lame answer if you consider it, but knowing what frequency you're experiencing, it's not dependent on just how you react to the low frequency or how you react to the high frequency. It's also dependent on you knowing, I've already healed from that. I've already gotten a grip on my emotional reaction. I've already gained control. Why do I feel so overwhelmingly enraged? And it's like, there are certain alarms that happen in your body just because there is stimulus in your environment. And this is another thing I just need to mention. A lot of times people will say, energy does not lie, trust your intuition. But I feel like, especially after this entire message, this entire video really, that's a dangerous thing to stand on. Like, I feel like those are shaky legs to stand on. Because as a whole, like, everyone who is interacting is basically like, if you're an evolving being, then you're evolving that interaction all of the time. Because as you evolve, your interactions evolve. And that's the cool thing about the highest frequency. It's always high level. Like, so wherever you go, they're always there. You've always got something to interact with. And I know sometimes that can feel really, really lonely. And this is another thing that I just wanted to say though, because you know how it can, you know how the butterflies can do that crazy cool thing that I mentioned where it's like they can fly in a crazy mess together and yet they don't run into one another, they can all fly in the same space. It's like, you can, so many people will be like, that's my mom, that's a sign, and it is so frequently, it's a sign, but I feel like being aligned with nature is what we should go for, because we're already more evolved than the human experience thousands of years ago. we've evolved. It's like we're evolving. Nature evolves. It doesn't matter how slow or fast it is. This is something that we do. And so oftentimes, if you like experience really beautiful messages and really cool things, and like sometimes we're getting messages from past living human experiences that we don't know. And so when I say guides, when I'm saying like your guides, our guides, my guides, they, when I say they, it's like I don't always know their names because I don't feel like one entire lifetime can be identified in a one-liner. I don't know that they are giving us that information and that's like a form of their truth, or if it's being articulated throughout us because that's a form of them evolving as we use it to evolve the living. So, I know I trailed off quite a bit there, but my point is here, when I'm saying guides, I'm saying it's all of us. It's everyone who was and is. And it's, you know what, the weird thing is, it's you too. Because so frequently, when I was going to do this how to reach up answer, the video that I was going to put in my members only space, I was going to be like, you reach up so often by asking the right questions. And you just have to sometimes put more effort into articulating the question you truly want answered. Because you will get what you ask for if you're intentionally and willing to, asking for it and willing to receive it. And to work with it and to work for it. And to do whatever it takes to make it happen. It's like, the odd thing about it, it's like when you ask the question, when you're asking for information, you're opening to the high frequency. Because where you want to know, they want you to know. Because without us, then the consciousness that exists around us invisibly, it's just stuff that can be experienced by the human experience. Like they had the sensations, they had the emotions, they made the decisions. And then we get to experience the after effects of that. I mean, it's as simple as saying that the ancient Egyptians thought, I mean, they were really cool and really smart about so many things, as many ancient civilizations were. But at some point along the line, you have to realize these people still thought in their brain that they were going to need their organs in jars when they were dead. We know better now, and because we know better now, so do they. They know better now. It's an interaction. It's truth. And it's like we're filtering it. So when you reach up with a question, sometimes asking the right question is going to give you that crazy eureka moment where you're like, oh, like now I know what I need to do. Now I know what it is that I was feeling. I know who I was sensing. That wasn't me. I'm not crazy. And so just an example of that, like when you asked these questions in these comments, I was working, like I have a list of certain videos that I want to put in my members only because I'm like really trying to improve the ability of others to be mediums. Because we're all mediums already, but it's like you want to intentionally be a medium for the frequency and the type of information you want to be a medium for. So I think that, I think it's wild that the questions that you've asked are the questions I was receiving answers to already. My point is, that's what's happening all of the time. It's an interaction. It's not me interacting in a cool way with your guides. It's the fact that you are seeking information, and because you are seeking information, and because I'm seeking information, we're both receiving the information that we are open to receiving in the space and time that we're open to receiving it. So, anyway, I guess it just said a lot of Captain Obvious stuff. I hope that's not just I hope it's not overkill. I just wanted to be beneficial, and I felt like there's no way that I could just keep this in the members only. That's not fair. Because I needed this stuff when I had no money whatsoever and I was a single mom and scared out of my mind of dead people that I was feeling. So I hope you have a really good rest of your evening. And I'm going to link at the end of this video, I'm going to link this recording I did 2 years ago of the song Amazing Grace. I did alter the words because I process my life experiences best with music. And I don't like to say things that don't align with the truth that I count on, that I stand on, and trust to use my own discernment. You know, I depend on these truths. So I just thought, I keep thinking about the reason I recorded it, and it was because of someone that our family lost because they took their own life. And so I thought, what an example of what I mean by reaching up, because this was one of those moments where it's like, I had no idea what to say to anyone in my family, because obviously, as so many of you know, as light workers, that not everybody is always really open to those things, and it's not always the right time. Timing matters. Timing is very important, and timing is up to us all. So, I don't like to throw things on people when I don't feel like it's the moment for them to learn about being a medium. Sometimes they're processing an experience that has nothing to do with, it doesn't need more weight. So, anyway, I recorded this song, and I feel like when I reached up with this song, what I was doing was receiving comfort through myself, because I really needed my own, what I consider to be my guide, because I've chosen to keep him, and because I just feel like it was just this unwritten thing between us. But like my dad, I had to reach for my dad, because I just wanted to know that this full-grown man, but I just feel like he's a baby, my baby nephew, I just want to know he was okay. So this song, I feel like if this can give you any form of comfort in just knowing that sometimes even those of us with really strong faith have nothing else to cling to but, God, I hope it's all true. I just want you to know that in those moments, you've still got access. Even if you don't have all the answers, you're still not alone. And I think that's why I made this song, is just because I needed to feel not alone, So, and I didn't know what to say. So anyway, I hope you have a really good evening. If you don't want to listen to the song, that's fine. I just wanted to offer it in case anybody did. And I will see you in the next reading.